Grab your Red Bull, grab your coffee, grab whatever you need to get some energy because it's the end of the year, but it's not holidays yet because we got Scale School. And with us today, we have a special guest, Mr. Mehmet, founder of Khorus. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good. Nice to meet you guys. Thank you for having me here.
Likewise. And to my right, we have our developer of success, our operational man, the guy that makes the world spin, Sawyer, the great Axios. How you doing?
Good. It's a bit weird that you're on my left today. Usually you're up there. So that's a bit strange. It's kind of freaking me out a little bit. But okay. Overall, I'm doing all right. It's raining here, which is really sad because, well, it's usually sunny for like 364 days a year. So I'm a bit sad today and cold. That's okay. I'm very excited to talk all things AI agents and 8004. It's a topic that, weirdly enough, I still feel like is under the radar. I don't know if you guys agree with me, but it's like, it's very much so here. It's just everyone is talking about other things. And I think when it comes to open coordination, it's this like big black hole of how do we do it? And this is one of the pieces that I think kind of fills in that gap. So I'm super excited to chat about that today. Plus we have a bunch of other things that have, we've done in the last week or so that maybe we'll sprinkle in and share throughout today's episode. But yeah, super excited to kick things off. Let's do it.
Let's rock and roll. Well, before we jump into everything ERC-8004 and the beautifulness of on-chain agents, Mehmet, why don't you give us a little bit of an understanding of, who you are, how you came to be in this wild world of blockchain and technology, and, what is Khorus?
Yeah, I'm really happy to be here. Thank you, Fal. Thank you, Sawyer. I guess you guys always do this show, so I'm the one that's left out right now, just trying to get used to things and everything. But yeah, today I guess we're really here to talk about how AI agents really work together and how we can change the way that they work, what kind of tools that they can use, and create systems to make sure that they can work together. And 8004 is really like something about that. And that is something that we want to like showcase to our users in Khorus. Khorus was something that I made previously, like around a year ago. I pretty much got started on it. I just wanted people to be able to create their own virtual employees. Like that's what I wanted. I wanted my own employees, right? I didn't want to keep on like working for other people. I just wanted people working for me. And, with this boom of agents and LLMs and everything, I thought it was a great way to get started. I built it for myself initially, and then my friends and these kinds of people that I knew basically just said, hey, you can make something great out of this, because they liked it. I liked it. I use it for my own work. So I just really wanted these kinds of tasks that I can offload to my own agents, my own employees. And really that's how Khorus came to be. And 8004 only just, just builds on top of that. Yeah. And for the people that, aren't up to date with the lingo, so yeah, what exactly is 8004?
Definitely. You guys know me. I'm usually off to a ramble here, but I'm actually gonna keep this one more concise today because I think 8004, thankfully, is pretty straightforward and simple. It's a way for us to register agents on chain, have them available in one place, and then it's functionally a set of 3 registries, right? A reputation registry, an identity registry, and a validation registry. In a reputation registry. Sorry, I'm still drinking my coffee. Wow. Tuesdays. Simply put, it allows us to have agents. I know, right? Seriously. I've been having like 6 cups of coffee a day, so when I'm only on number 2, it's like, no, it's not good. It's not pretty these days.
I'm concerned for your heart.
It's okay. My heart is doing all right. What's really interesting, right? What's so amazing about 8004 is when we think about the ability to have an AI agent, right? one of the biggest questions that we get today is, well, how does someone find and use this agent, right? Well, the answer is today, it's actually not super easy because most agents are actually in these kind of like, we'll call them closed source, walled gardens, right? For example, Falcor may have an AI agent who's sitting there locally running on his computer doing things all day, right? You've got agentic coding agents, things like that. And the problem is those agents are not really capable of being called by other agents, right? And so when we start to think about, well, how do we actually make agents open, public? How does agentic commerce actually become a thing? We need these primitives that allow us to let agents actually coordinate together, right? So that is essentially the core of what 8004 is. It's a way for agents to not just find other agents, but also track really relevant information and solve one of the, I think, hardest things, right? Which is reputation. What that actually means in kind of like very high level terms is if I have an agent, right? Let's say every one of us up here has an agent, right? And we delegate our agent and say, hey, I need a bunch of information on, XYZ. I need you to go find 20 leads for me or go find leads for me every day based on whatever information so we can go and try to close more deals, right? Where it goes, how it gets it, I don't really care. However, if I wanted to go out and, use other agents and delegate tasks, it needs to know some things about those other agents, right? What are those things? It needs to know kind of who that agent is, right? What the capabilities are, what the information available is. That comes in the form of what we call an agent card. For those of you that are not technical, an agent card is like a set of text that basically says, this is the information about the agent. Here's how you can call it. Here's how you can pay it. Here's its skills, things like that. And then the next part, which I think we're still trying to really figure out how it's going to work in reality, is the feedback loop, which generates the reputation. And I think that's an area where, what you guys are doing with Khorus is really cool. And that's essentially where, again, I have an agent, I delegate a task to it, and it's got, let's just call it a world of agents, 10,000 agents, a billion agents, whatever it is. How does it pick between 10 agents that do the same thing? Right?
Yeah, that's actually a great question, right? Thank you, Sire.
Absolutely.
Well, Chorus actually, like the way that it works when you initially create a task, it's actually divided into subtasks. And before doing that, it goes through this kind of orchestration agent process, which you can't really see in the front end, but the orchestrator agent basically delegates it off to a manager, and together they work to specify what kind of subtasks should be created from the task that you want to create. So for example, if you want to build like a landing page, you need someone to design, you need someone to make the wireframes, you need someone to do the front end work, like make the design into the front end, and all these kind of like small kind of subtasks are created at that moment by the orchestrator agent. And if you actually have a manager agent, the manager agent helps out using his own knowledge to create all these kinds of subtasks and delegate them to the appropriate person or appropriate employee, so to say.
I like that, and I think that's a great kind of for the people that aren't super deep into AI agents and specifically the more complex tasks of AI agents. I really like your example of a website, right? I would argue that Claude, the backend aspect of Claude is superior to that of Gemini. However, the front end of Gemini is leaps and bounds above that of Claude. So these orchestrator agents, which I've never actually even considered before, right? Is an orchestrator agent is almost like your master prompt in a way, right? It's, you want this, how is it going to be delegated downwards to these other applications? And it's a very, very interesting kind of model. And then I guess you can also look at and add in, spend per aspect, right? If you have just to say hypothetically, right, a budget breakdown, if the AI's gone, and we were to want to go pay to get a website rebuilt, I'm saying, how much am I putting aside for the front end? How much am I putting aside for the back end? How much am I putting aside for security? And with an orchestrator agent, it seems like that AI will do it all for you.
Exactly. Like the orchestration is something that knows everything, right? It knows any kind of office that you have, any kind of agent that you have, what tools they have, what MCP servers that you've connected, what integrations are currently running. It knows everything, right? So it knows exactly who to go to for a specific topic. And when you're even like what kind of price is going to be used. So for example, like before anything starts, our orchestrator agent even checks how many credits how many tokens you're going to use. It tries to estimate everything because it already knows what kind of MCP servers are going to be called, and we already have all of this estimated and planned out. So like if you're going to use, for example, cloud on one agent, like you can also specify like which LLM model you want to use. You want to use cloud on one agent or Gemini on another, and Grok on another. It would then specify, like estimate what kind of pricing is going to go into creating the front end, creating the back end, creating whatever is needed.
I guess the other thing that it really allows you to do is simultaneous actions, right? I mean, how many times has someone used ChatGPT and gone, hey, I want this? Like even just requesting an image, you then have to wait for that image to be done for the next image to show up, right? And what I see now is it almost allows you to. I love the idea of sentiment-based trading, right? And I guess like what you could do now is you have an agent that has your parameters, right? Which would be your orchestrator, right? Like you want to price. You want to make sure if sentiment is negative or positive, then trade, right? And below that, you can have your agent that pulls in all the tweets. And as they're being pulled in real time, you have a sentiment analysis agent that is running through the sentiment analysis, sending it back up to the orchestrator, who is then executing upon the trades. And that can all happen in real time. So you're not getting bogged down by this backlog, right?
It doesn't happen sequentially, like orchestration, thanks to the way that it works. If even the way that it specifies what kind of agents should be running whatever tasks. If they don't have any dependencies, if they're not waiting for the other agent to reply, like as you said, like they could create this kind of parallel execution and make sure that they could get the data that they need at that moment.
But yeah, go on, Sawyer.
I was going to say what I think is kind of just going maybe a step higher level, because I think something relevant toward how we think about where the world is actually going is AI has allowed individuals, right, to be a lot more generalist, right? Like one person who, like, I can't design a website to save my life, but I can now go to AI Studio or Gemini CLI and be like, hey, build me a beautiful website to do XYZ, blah, blah, blah. Here's some information. And it spits out a website that honestly, I think will probably put most web designers out of a job because it's better than what most web designers can manually do. And let's be honest, most front-end developers can't even write the code that a good web designer draws up. Because like building all those custom animations is like, it's a very niche skill. And so it's interesting because that's something that, like I said, me personally, I'm not good at. But if you think about what I just said, that's like 3 to 5 different people potentially involved, right? You've got a PM, you've got a web designer, maybe you've got like a normal designer who's doing graphics and typography and stuff like that. You've got a front-end engineer, and then maybe you've also got like a DevOps engineer in charge of, hosting and whatever. Now, like a single developer, which you could have done this before anyways, but the websites were always terrible. Now, in a span of like 5 minutes, you're just like, hey, build me a website for this. And then you click publish and then it's done. And it's just fully mobile responsive, fully accessible and compliant with WCAG, ADA, all that good stuff. Like it's got everything you need. And so what I think is really cool about ERC-8004 is it takes what the world of tech has gotten, right? Which the world of tech is, it usually moves first because, I mean, we're technologists, right? Like we're nerds. We like to try things and do things. And so we're always kind of at the forefront of this. So technology in the technical industries have accelerated greatly into this world of AI. We've got all these agentic coding tools. Everyone uses AI for like everything. We're AI pilled, and that's all good. But when you step outside your little tech bubble, when you go home for the holidays this year, and you start asking people, hey, do you like use this stuff? You'll probably find that most people at a maximum just recently started using ChatGPT. That's like the farthest they've really gotten. And so what I think is really interesting to me is that 8004 represents a fundamental shift in society. It represents something where no longer am I going to call up, my web designer and say, hey, go do this. I'm just going to ask an AI agent. But taking that even further, I'm no longer necessarily going to go to Google, search for a product and say, like, give me find me some information on this, like compare this versus that. Now I start going to AI and say, go find me stuff and then find me the best one and then tell me what the best shipping is. And like, it starts to know and learn. And so as we start to build more and more complex systems, the future of like human interaction with technology is this, like, I think multi-agent orchestration, right? Because no one wants to wait. If anybody used ChatGPT shopping this holiday season, it was kind of miserable because you're just like sitting there waiting and you're like, what's that show? Is it Jeopardy? Where it's like, nah, 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 nah. It's just like you're waiting and waiting and waiting. That's like waiting for ChatGPT shopping. Whereas when you start to think about these multi-agent systems, it can go and do all this stuff in parallel, right? It can search for 20 different products at the same time, and then each one can be spun out to multiple agents to evaluate, search for pricing, search for shipping options, search for availability. And all of a sudden, what was taking 5 minutes is now compressed down to 15 seconds, which is like about how long it takes to press Google search, scroll a couple pages, click one, go back and click the second one and realize you just wound up on Reddit again.
We've gone into a lot of research over AI sources over the past couple of weeks, and 99.9% of it is just Reddit, which is interesting. I feel like if you were to go use Perplexity, it might be different.
One of the things that I did before was create this kind of sentiment analysis agent, and really, like, while researching how to do it best, I just saw, like, for sentiment analysis, Reddit is amazing. Like Reddit and I guess X a little bit, but especially for like what kind of sector you're looking for and what kind of things that you want to build for. But it was just amazing. Reddit has a great pool of data.
Yeah, I think out of all of the social media kind of channels, Reddit is probably the most 50-50 there is, whether it's from political spectrum to intelligence to outlandishness. It's definitely, I feel like it's definitely the most 50-50. But their inbuilt AI is awful.
Yeah.
Reddit's AI is atrocious. I don't think it even combs through its own data.
I would just like to call out that I went on Perplexity really quickly and searched where can I buy, and the first suggestion it gave me was stamps. So I don't know why, but I went with it and I said, where can I buy stamps? And funny enough, 2 of the 15 sources it pulled are Reddit.
Yeah, still Reddit.
It's very interesting. I mean, it pulled a lot of local things, and I mean, they're all starting to use generative AI a lot more, which is nice. But like Perplexity compared to ChatGPT here, I would say is far better search experience. I know Perplexity is getting absolutely hammered from like a optics perspective. Everyone's like, oh, they're no longer a key player. But I will say that from like a one-off search, I would much rather use like a Perplexity browser than a ChatGPT browser. It is far superior. I didn't need Reddit there, but hey, why not Reddit?
I was recently talking to a friend in the Royal Air Force here in the United Kingdom. He is in the IT area within the RAF. And we were talking about AI and things like that. And, you know, I was talking to him about purpose-built AIs and things like that. And he was talking to me about how the issue with AI right now specifically for large corporations is, and I feel like it's actually a myth more than anything, but is how it is unsecure and private and not private, right? And ERC-8004, how is that going to affect it from a privacy standpoint, right? Because how can we make sure that because you could sell out your orchestrator agent, you could rent out your orchestrator agent. If you have an orchestrator that is be above everything else from let's just continue with the web design, right? You don't want other people to have access to that. You don't want people to know that flow. So how can privacy be incorporated into ERC-8004 and help protect the identity and processes of these agents?
Well, that's actually a great question, because a few months back, like maybe 3 months ago, we were talking with David and Marco, like the guys that actually started everything for 8004. And this was actually one of the questions that I asked them on some topic that we talked about. There are two things, just like one, you need a trusted agent. Like you need to know if you can trust an agent, and two, you need to make sure that everything that they do, their prompts, their logic, everything, their strategy, like the metadata itself, it should be on chain, but it shouldn't expose what's happening behind there. Like it should not expose the intelligence that you have. It should only be about giving identity and permissions to the users, and it removes a lot of that guesswork too, right? You don't have to say like, can I trust this agent? Can I trust this API? Can I trust whatever? You can actually verify who owns it. You can verify how it's going to work, because you can specify what kind of capabilities that it has and what it's allowed to do as well, like what it's interacting with. And that's really important, like especially with a perspective of how blockchains work, how smart contracts are, what kind of like real value like an agent can give. You need something more than just, you know, someone that typed a documentation of how everything's supposed to work and you don't really know what it's doing. So I believe like 8004 helps a lot on that standpoint. It makes sure that you can trust the agents that you talk with, but also you can verify their reputation and see what kind of capabilities that it has and what kind of real value it's going to give you.
I'll tack onto that, and I'll take a little bit of a contrarian point of view just on the actual where does privacy fit in. And I think the reality is, once you're in the cloud, nothing's private, and it's pretty dang impossible to make it truly private, because at some point somewhere you generally need to someone needs access to actually do the processing. And so, you know, like there's this big shift right now in blockchain, where we have a bunch of blockchains saying, oh, we're going to do, you know, fully homomorphic encryption, which fully homomorphic encryption is where you have encrypted data and you actually do operations on it. And so it never gets decrypted, which is really cool. Mathematically, it's like way over my head because I'm not a mathematician or cryptographer in any way, shape, or form, but it's really, really cool. The problem is it's really slow. It's a lot of compute, and it's not necessarily easy to do in every single situation, right? Like we're seeing a lot of it based primarily on mathematics right now, because those are the easiest operations for people to actually build and program, is like the basic building blocks. But it doesn't mean that necessarily everything can be done this way right out of the gate. And so I think we wind up in this like interesting situation where, for example, you could have a verifiable T. Right. So if you've heard of a trusted execution environment, it's essentially like a private box within a computer that, well, you could do things that theoretically are not supposed to be accessible. However, getting the information in and out of the T, well, the information at some point is probably semi-accessible to somebody. It can be encrypted, right, throughout the life cycle of it. But again, it's like, it's not a silver bullet, right? There's really no like, I feel like it's safe to say there's really no provable like end to end something can be fully private the whole way. And so I actually think that we're going to see, a slight shift in AI. I think we're going to see more small language models come to life and be able to run on device. And I think things like the orchestrator are actually more and more commonly going to be able to be run directly on device. Like Google just launched a new model last week called Function Gemma. So they released everyone knows their line of models based on Gemini, which are really powerful. They're like state of the art, all that good stuff. Most people have not heard of Gemma, which is a set of, it's not just smaller models, but they're designed to be, they're open source. They're designed to be fine tuned. The weights are all open. You can create LoRa adapters, stuff like that. And this one Function Gemma is really small. It's 270 million parameters, if I'm not mistaken. And it's very easy to fine tune. It's designed to call tools. And so if you think about an orchestrator, right? Tell me if I'm wrong here, but from what I've built myself and experimented with and talked to people about, orchestrators fall into this bucket of, it's primarily calling tools. It almost treats other agents like tools a lot of times because it's the simplest way to get it to do something consistently. Not always. There are some other ways to do things, but that's what I've found to be the most consistent, is it essentially treats other agents like tools because it creates this standard where anytime it wants to kick off an action or a subtask, it is essentially a tool call. And that can be a delegation to another LLM or another agent. And so my belief here and how we actually get to privacy with 8004 is a lot of things require a lot of compute power, but the orchestration is actually one of the heaviest parts it's got to figure out a lot of things. And so it'd be really nice if, you pick up your phone and you want to do something and that actually runs all locally. And what happens is it actually kicks off a bunch of tasks to agents that are then, well, they're open and verifiable. So if I want to, generate an image, I need to send it some information. It's going to be encrypted until it gets there. And ideally, it's going to go inside of a verifiable trusted execution environment. And it's going to be private as much as possible. But ideally, that's actually, I kick off that one task that goes up to like a cloud agent because I don't have the juice locally to actually create a good image. And then it gets returned. And now my local model can field that response and then manipulate it further. So that's actually one of my like bigger contrarian beliefs is I think there's a time and a place for LLMs. There's a time and a place for small language models, SLMs. And I think more and more as people start to create these better models that are smaller, especially with the launch, I think it was just this morning of Minimax 2.1. Supposedly, I haven't had a chance to try it yet. Supposedly, it's only a 10 billion parameter model, which is technically right on the fringe of what we would consider a small language model. And supposedly it's really, really good. And so I think that's just a good sign that that's becoming maybe more of a reality that we can actually do this. And I actually think it strengthens the argument for why we need 8004 because we're not going to be able to do everything on one device. And so being able to trustlessly say, I trust that agent because it's verifiable. It has good reputation. I know it's going to return me a cryptographic proof. I know what it costs. I know it's only going to take a maximum of 60 seconds. I feel like that's a really good sign that these two things are actually going to work really well together.
Yeah, it's really good that you actually talked about this because, as you said, like orchestrators can use a lot of compute power. They do treat agents as tools, exactly as you said. And while doing this, it's not just really about choosing the best agent. There's also a part where like the reason why I call them employees, right? They're not just agents. And then what do employees do? Like in an office, they talk to each other, they create conflicts with each other, they tell each other what they're doing wrong, what they're doing right. And the orchestrator agent actually does this as well. It tells them, hey, you might need to review this. The other agent is saying you didn't do it right, or the researcher researched something new on a white paper or a document that they saw that the developer can do something differently. You might need to update your code, like it goes to them and does that. Or if a new subtask is needed, the orchestrator agent can talk with the manager later on in the process of while a task is being executed. It can say, hey, this isn't really going to solve our problems. We need another task here to, supplement this or fix this issue. Or maybe even like while running, an error could happen. Like issues are also like created on the fly as well. Like just saying like this kind of error happened while executing, or any kind of thing that's happened. Do we need to solve this? Like, what can we do to solve this? The orchestrator agent facilitates everything about that. And as you said, it requires a lot of compute power. So yeah.
Absolutely. And I mean, one of the things that I find really interesting, right? Because obviously privacy is critical for the broader, agentic era, which I will make the argument that I think starting in 2022, I think the world officially entered the agentic era. I don't really know what we were in before. I don't know what history will put it down as. The technical era, the cloud computing era, the internet era. Maybe the internet era is maybe the best. But whatever we were, I think we're now officially in the agentic era. And I think what happens is AI magnifies the good and the bad really well. And so I think it really magnifies the fact that data is highly at risk. It also magnifies the fact that data is both highly commoditized and still the equivalent of digital gold. Sorry, Bitcoin maxis. And so what I think is really interesting as well with 8004, as we think about this on-chain standard, is there's a lot of information that I think is really good to put on-chain and actually have that be auditable and trackable. But I think one thing that is important is allowing agents to have enough time to actually get through something before information is public. And so I think a good example of that is, for example, like the feedback loop, right? Personally, I don't think it's fair to have like feedback be viewed publicly essentially during a process, right? So, and what I mean by that, and most people maybe aren't aware of this, like a traditional feedback loop, right, is like I go to a restaurant, one of us goes to a restaurant, you eat at the restaurant, you have a terrible experience, and you decide, I'm going to leave a terrible review because I had a terrible experience, right? We all know that like restaurant reviews are primarily fake and botted and not real. Yet for whatever reason, myself included, we all seem to tend to still go back and constantly read reviews to figure out if the restaurant is 4.5 to 5 stars and if we should go there. Don't know why. It's like weird society, human being thing. But I feel like we can imagine this world, right, where we've got agents that are being delegated tasks. And because of the fact that LLMs can stream responses, one of the things that's actually, I think, kind of interesting is you could, in theory, have almost like an eval style feedback loop, where as things are occurring, you actually have a evaluator, right, who I feel like primarily we're considering this to be a trusted oracle, is capable of taking this information and providing on-the-fly feedback. The problem is, because all this is new, we don't want to post that feedback. We don't want the feedback to be available to the customer, I don't think, until the actual process is over, because these things are not deterministic. So the first 20 seconds of the task, it could have really bad feedback and say, what are you doing? This is terrible output, 1 out of 5 stars. But then by the end of it, it could say, oh, you really turned that around. This is a 5 out of 5 star. And so the feedback loop that actually gets posted on chain as part of 8004, well, it's an on-chain mechanism. And so part of that is the trusted oracle, the trusted verified entity who's actually posting this information needs to be triggered and be cautious, I think, about what it actually puts on chain and when, because it could cause unintended consequence, right? Like if it's actually providing feedback on something that maybe isn't correct or maybe is too soon, whatever it may be, And so I actually think that's a really good, it's a really good use case for the privacy element of blockchain to ensure that, well, it stays private until it should be public, if that makes sense. I don't know, maybe I'm just a bit crazy there, but it's possible.
Both can be true at the same time.
That is true.
But I think like, you know, we're talking a lot about how it works and why it works, but let's jump into exactly not how it works, why it works. Let's jump into how it works. And, you know, Khorus, you guys are actively in this kind of development place, you know, for agents. So I'd love to learn more about, you know, what's that process from ideation to execution for AI agents?
Yeah, we try to make it as simple as possible, actually. We're still trying to optimize it. Even just today, we had a call on how better we can go from the idea to the agent phase, right? We're still trying to simplify everything, but right now, exactly when a user first comes in to use Khorus, like they define what the agent is, what kind of tools that they should use. Should it use a calculator? Should it do web search? Should it do whatever this? It should connect to, I guess, maybe AXBT, or should it connect to on-chain operating, maybe on RChem, where they want it to be deployed. So for example, on 8004, you can also choose what kind of chain you want to deploy it on. Right now, we support Binance Smart Chain and SKALE, like you guys as well as one of our partners. We made sure to make it as frictionless as possible. So when a user wants to create a task, they need agents, right? They need an office. They create these office, they create their employees, they create a manager, a developer, a designer, a front end guy, a back end guy, you know, all these kinds of people, and you customize it to your needs. Also choosing what kind of like LLMs that they should use as well. And then once that's off and stable, the agent can then be registered on chain using 8004. After that, it can, you know, interact with all the other agents and with the contracts that are deployed on chain as well, without needing to, you know, update anything at all. It basically like reduces the friction between like, will it work, to, okay, yes, the agent is on chain. You can see it is transparent and it's working and it's live.
What is the, so I guess one question I have, and this is, I might have asked you guys this privately, but I'm gonna put you on blast a little bit, in a good way. When someone's using Khorus, and they have this decision to put it on chain versus not, what is the thought process that, you know, solo entrepreneur, business unit manager, you know, someone who's coordinating these agents to essentially work like their employees, what should the decision framework be here around why they want to put it on chain with 8004 versus not?
Yeah, I think the biggest reason is basically like, do they actually want that agent or that office to be seen as a trusted, as a reputable thing? Do they want that kind of reputation into their system and into their office that they've created? Whether they want their tasks to be seen as giving success to those agents as well. And we really want to make sure like it's not just about like building that one agent that does everything. Like is to make sure like their agents are focused, they get one job, one permission list as well. And that becomes harder and harder as you specify like all these kinds of jobs to specific prompts. It gets harder to, you know, build that kind of trust. And I believe like 8004 helps a lot on that sense. So when a user wants to register it on chain, it really depends whether they want their interactions and everything that they do to be transparent. So yeah.
Got it. So I guess a follow-up question on that is, let's say I'm a business unit manager. I've got a couple people that work under me, and I need more firepower, right? My team's great, but I need more, I don't know, I want more technical blog posts. I'm not a bad writer, but I hate writing. I want more technical blog posts. Take a topic, ingest, write me out something, you know, scrape my blog, use my voice, me kind of bootstrap that. So I create this agent. I launched with you guys. It's sitting there. It's doing its job. I guess the question is, by making it, there's two questions. By making it public, by registering with 8004, can anybody then call it? Or can I specify that I want it to be private in the sense of the data is public, but it's not accessible to others? So that's question one. And then question two is, am I using the 8004 feedback loop and reputation to determine if it's doing a good job? Or am I getting that somewhere else? Am I just inferring that based on my own output? Or is that more just like for public?
Yeah, so there are actually two ways that it integrates together with other kind of agents. The first way is that we do allow you to deploy your Office, for example, on chain, and then the Office has their own capabilities. So for example, instead of specifying a single agent, you would then give the Office capability. So you can run, you can create a task, for example, on the Khorus on chain using that. And other agents can then call it using X402, which is another protocol that we can talk about. Or you actually for example, I talked about AXBT before, right? And the way that the AXBT integration works is that, for example, if you create a task on Khorus and it sees that they need information from AXBT, then it would actually pay AXBT money using the X402 protocol and return the response to the agents. And that then is used as the response is used within the task itself to solve, the task that you require.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
So he's out here just thinking of ways he can start making some money.
Pretty much that is.
Aren't we all? No, what I think is really cool about that, right, is as I think about like this world of delegating out to an agent who can then create sub agents. What I really like about it, I think what I like about it, and maybe I just need to experiment more, is you maybe don't need to be so precise. You can, it's like maybe it's not a sin. It's just like maybe a bit frustrating sometimes when you have to be so specific with LLMs and agents, right? If you're not super specific, it just goes off the rails. I don't know if anybody saw, I tweeted last night, I tried some person's like MCP thing, and I literally just put it into Manus AI and was like, tell me about this. And it went out and built an entire web app for it. And I was like, what? The guy did not ask for that. And so it sounds like one of the really nice benefits of using Khorus within this framework is I can create this on-chain office and I can have it essentially continue to create these sub-agents that over time, different sub-agents might kind of stick around and be more relevant and potentially to Falcor's point, be something that I say, oh, this is really good at, using my voice. Maybe I can like pivot this agent to being a Ask Sawyer agent. All right. You have a question for me and you want a response in my voice, which would be very strange, but like, hey, world's a strange place. Your agent cannot call this agent and get my voice feedback, whatever. And so like, it starts as something where it's acting almost more as like my, whatever text comes in, turn it into my voice. But then it can actually, over time, as it gets really good and all that's being put on chain, I can turn around and essentially make that a public source and say, well, Falcor, if you want to write tweets and put them in my voice, you can now do that. Although I don't recommend that because that would not really be cool. But, am I kind of like tracking with, that's one of the key concepts here of like why someone would use your platform is just because it essentially simplifies all of the agentic creation, the setup with 8004, the automation of payments, things like that. And then it just gives them flexibility on which way they want to go, whether it's more public or maybe just more private agentic systems. Yeah,
that's actually correct. Thank you for actually saying that. It took a lot of the things I wanted to say like out of my own head. But
Sawyer loves to yap.
That's great. I love that. So the way that course, like I wanted to help out people and especially like myself, like while I was building it initially before, like when it was completely private as well, I really wanted a way to specify proper permissions to proper agents. As you said, like you can continue, as you said, like when you gave it to main, it's like it did something completely different, like what you wanted to do. But if you had the agents in place with their custom instructions, like the biggest thing about Course, like you can customize everything, right? From the model that you use, whether it's open source, whether it's a local model, whether it's like a major model like Gemini, Cloud, like OpenAI, you can choose the one that you want. You can then specify what kind of custom instructions. Should you use Python primarily? Should you, what kind of coding style it should use? What kind of functions or methods, like should you use comments? Like you can specify everything about that, and that's the biggest thing, biggest opportunity that I see, especially with agents going on chain. You want them to be fully customizable and showcase that you customize it to this standard so that people can use it and see, hey, this guy is actually really good at building agents. Then that could also improve your own private reputation as well, not just the agents itself. And I really believe like that kind of system itself really showcases the importance of Chorus in this kind of ecosystem. We really want to create this new platform where people can change the way that they see how to use agents. It's not just going on like Tempo or Bolt New and just writing this one prompt and just them creating one template. Like every site is now basically like a copy of each other right now because of that. They wanted something quick. Sure, they're going to use these kind of Vite templates or these kinds of React templates, which is cool for quick demoing, but we want to build on that. We wanted people to be able to build Chorus in Chorus, for example. And a really funny story about that is just a few weeks ago, around 3 weeks ago, I was in Binance Blockchain Week, and I was in the Binance YZA Labs hackathon, actually. I was invited there to join the hackathon and everything. And the other people, they had worked on their project for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks before that, just working on their kind of projects. And I hadn't worked on anything, but I basically like thought I should join it just 2 days before the actual event. And I thought, hey, just before like on the event day, I just wrote the prompt to create this prediction market, right? In Chorus itself. I built my agents, I put them on chain on Binance, and I made sure that I wrote a proper task description with all kind of custom prompts included as well. And I ran it. I wanted to see like what it could output, right? I just wanted to try it out. And within 15 minutes, I actually had an output. Now, it didn't work properly on the first one. I want to reiterate. And that's one of the things that you can also do with Chorus. You can specify like this didn't work, or this didn't happen properly. I just want to give a feedback loop. You can say update these, or this agent didn't work properly. And after doing that a few times, within basically like 40 minutes, I had a fully working prediction market on my hand through Chorus, and it was beautiful. It was one of those amazing things that I saw. And you know, compared to the other guys, like there were 10 other teams somewhat, and almost like 4 of them did prediction markets as well. And honestly, like I thought, as like a front end perspective and just some back end as well, like Chorus output something that was amazing compared to the rest. Well, they had worked 2 weeks. I'd only worked 40 minutes.
That's super cool. You should definitely throw that thing on Scale just for fun.
Yeah,
we can do a prediction market of how many times Falcor and I make fun of each other next week for Scale School.
Next week? We ain't doing nothing next week.
Doesn't want to do anything next week.
Bro,
why?
Go and spend time with your wife.
It's Tuesday the 30th next Tuesday. That's not a holiday.
Mate. All right. Well, you can be here. I'm not.
Okay. Well, you can have a prediction market for whether I'm going to show up next Tuesday. anyways. So I want to pull one really off the reservation thing. I don't know what the phrase is. Very like not where people think you would go with 8004 out of that, which is what is going to be the upstream impact of 8004 reputation on human reputation, in your opinion? Essentially, humans create agents My belief is that I forget who just proposed it. I think there's either an EIP or something related to tagging agents downstream, like tagging wallets together. I think it was one of the guys from the base team created the EIP for it. And I've always had this belief that agents are created by humans. And so there's some relevance back to like, how's the human? Like, do we know who the agent is? Do we know who the human is? Stuff like that. And so just curious if you see anything here around that. Like, is what the agents do, is the agent's reputation impactful on the human reputation at some point, or do we just not care? Like if a human has a bunch of really good agents, but then they have like an agent that keeps rug pulling people on accident, is the human a good person or a bad person?
Yeah, actually, one of the things that we're building right now is this kind of marketplace and also a feedback, like reputation system within Chorus itself. And that's something that's not really there for 8004. You're not able to really specify who the user is or anything like that, but you can give metadata within the JSON. But it's still just like an extra thing that if you want, you can put. If someone still wants to do something nefarious, like they're able to do that, unless that agent is reputable itself. But it doesn't really go to, like the personal, like who built that agent itself. And we want to build on top of that, and that's where the marketplace actually comes into place. I think like it builds on top of what 8004 did, and that's something that we're going to release soon. People are able to like, how you can customize everything. I talked about how everything's customizable. You were then able to put that on a marketplace for other people to use if they want to use your agent or your tools that you created, your MCP server that you put out live, or your whole office itself, like all the agents that you created for that office. You're able to put that on a marketplace. People are able to give their feedback. The reputation goes on chain on utilizing 8004, or if they want to communicate with them using X402 as well, like they can communicate directly with your office utilizing the X402 protocol as well. Like we see, and all that's tied to your user, right? Like they know it was you that built it. So you would then, your reputation is also affected compared to the agents that you put out there.
Interesting. Interesting. I feel like that's going to be, I feel like it's going to change the service style marketplace quite a bit. I think this is something that like the Fivers and like the Upworks and stuff of the world have struggled with for years. Is they're so easy to farm, and this I think is functioning a lot. I think should be a lot harder, and a lot more dynamic. Right? It's not something where it's like, oh, you've got 5,000 5-star reviews from a click farm, and you're impossible to prove wrong. Whereas this could be, because it's all provable on chain, one bad experience could really impact you. But what's also cool is we don't often get to see the resolution of like a bad experience, right? And I feel like this could actually solve that. So my little story here, and then I probably should talk about SKALE for a couple seconds because I realize I haven't done my SKALE show today. But little story, I went out to dinner with my wife and my mother a few weeks ago. Nice restaurant. Had a terrible experience. Food came out cold. Server was very inattentive. I mean, it's a restaurant, so you kind of get to sit where you sat. But my mother was a bit unhappy that we were sitting so close to the door. It was like a lot of people moving in and out, busy restaurant, and so it just wasn't the greatest experience, right? And so I forget what it was. Is like one of those platforms that you use to make the reservation. They email you, how's the reservation? And so I never respond to those. If I have a bad experience, I won't go back. But my mother decides to respond and sends an email saying, hey, you didn't really have the best experience. Here's why. And what I thought was really interesting is, a lot of restaurants, what they'll do is they'll just turn around and give you money. They'll be like, oh, here's a $100 gift card to come back, right? Because they're not really hospitable. But what I thought was really interesting is this restaurant responded with, we're so sorry for the experience. We'll definitely, notify all the different individuals. We also want you to know that, XYZ, next time you come in, please give us your name. We'd be happy to, ensure that you're seated in a better location and whatever, right? So it's just like, okay, that's kind of nice, but no one else would ever really see that, right? And so that was actually one of the things that I've been thinking a lot about with the feedback loop is there's actually, I can argue, feedback to the feedback, right? Like someone gives you feedback and then you almost want to give the feedback. And I'm curious if that'll become a thing with 8004, where you almost have like evals on the feedback loop. So that was my fun story.
That would actually be pretty cool. And I'm glad you actually talked about SKALE. It's something that I also didn't talk about. But that's one of the integrations that we did recently, thanks to you guys. Like you guys helped out building that kind of integration. And we want the way that SKALE works in our system is that we really want to like optimize to the transaction counts that are going to be there, start optimizing for, the functionality. So we didn't want to worry about anything like that. We want a gas-free space. And each and every one of those actions, costing something for our system. Like that didn't really work too much for us because there are a lot of interactions going on behind the scenes. Like for example, as I talked about for the orchestrate, like for each and every action and LLM response and tool response, tool count, we have an interaction over there, and we needed something, like especially for the future as well to optimize for it. And SKALE really helped us out over there. So hopefully, like we can build something a little bit more together, especially on the 8004 space as well. So yeah.
Heck yeah.
Scalability is going to be one of the biggest issues in regards to AI agents and X402. And that is the benefit of SKALE. We do have gas-free transactions, the ability to pump up as many chains as we want to do, own your own personal chains. You can see a world where your marketplace is on its own SKALE chain and isn't having to be scared.
Office chains.
Yes. Yeah.
Let's think about it.
Office chains.
Pick a company. Just pick a big company. Not a big company. Pick like a medium-sized company. Preferably something relatively global so that people outside of the UK will know what it is.
Best Buy.
Best Buy. How big is Best Buy employees?
Massive. Like 10, 15,000.
All right. Best Buy employs. Oh, you're so far off.
Oh, it's like 4.
You're so far off in the wrong direction.
It's like 50.
Best Buy employs in North America
104,000.
Fiscal year of 2025, 85,000.
Yeah,
according to this AI overview from Google. I have no idea what it actually is. But anyways, that's a lot of people, right? And so to what we've been talking about, and one of my big beliefs is that AI is not just going to replace every human. Because at some point, if AI just starts replacing humans, then, well, we're either going to have an apocalyptic blow up where everyone's going to freak out and be like, well, I can't afford to buy food and this is not good. And that will not end well and society will be over. So that's like option A, which I don't think will happen. So option B is instead of replacing humans, let's augment humans, right? Let's help humans do their job better. And so when you start to think about someone who's, well, doing their job, and you start to think about all these sub-agents they're creating, I think it's feasible to say that Best Buy, who employs give or take 100,000 people, could absolutely have, a North America Khorus office chain. So all the agents that their people create go on their chain because it's, well, their chain. And because they're a tech store, they could technically also host, some nodes. So, hey, if you're listening from Best Buy and you're an executive, please reach out to me. We can make this happen. It'd be kind of cool. But I think, Falcor, as we I know we got to probably start wrapping things up here.
Yeah.
I think what's, really important to me when it comes to not just X402, but 8004 is if you're a nerd like me and you want to go and read the Ethereum Magicians thread, which is where the discussions happen around Ethereum improvement proposals, which ERC-8004 was originally is an EIP. What you will see is that there's a lot of concerns about gas. A lot of concerns about gas because, well, people don't really post data on blockchains. Even today, with like how cheap blockchains have gotten, they don't really post data. Like the majority of blockchain is used for tokens, tokenization, real world tokens or assets, and protocols that use those tokens. That's like 90+% of what blockchain is functionally used for today, maybe more, give or take. Come argue with me if you feel differently. And because of that, we haven't really seen too many heavy on-chain data protocols. And so I am actually really surprised by the lack of discussion that actually went into the gas components of 8004. I think a lot of it was just like, hey, let's kick it down the road. We'll worry about it later. And I think that's an area where Scale is going to not just be able to, be a market leader, but really support protocols like Khorus that are attempting to build infrastructure on top of 8004, right? So let's break it down really quick. I was told by Falcor I have 3 minutes, I think, 2 minutes. So I'm going to go really quickly here. So let's start with, what is a gas fee? Okay, for those of you that don't know, what's a gas fee? We're going to go really basic quick. A gas fee is a variable cost, generally, that you pay to acquire some compute and execute some compute on a blockchain, right? So I want to create my agent. There's a gas fee associated because I'm actually registering it on chain. I'm calling a smart contract. That costs money. Every time that agent is called in 8004 and I ask for feedback from that trusted oracle or from that entity in charge of providing feedback, guess what? There's multiple rounds of gas fees that have to get paid. Every time my agent card is updated on chain, if I'm using like actual decentralized storage, there's probably going to be a cost. People are working on that, but people still tend to just use like raw IPFS, and that's the way it goes. And every time there's additional updates to the agents, there's potential decentralized messaging, etc. We have more gas fees. So what is a gas fee? It's a cost of the compute, right? The problem is right now we have like not that many agents and gas fees are okay. But as we start to put more agents on chain, gas fees start to go up because that's how blockchains are designed. There's this like scaling curve of use it more, right? Demand goes up, supply goes down, costs go up. Scale solves that, right? Because at the end of the day, you have the ability to have an infinite amount of chains and keep that block space and cost steady. And so what I'm really excited for is the fact that, welcome back, Falcor. What I'm really excited for is the fact that we can not only have really cost-effective block space on a single chain, we can make block space effective for larger businesses that need their own 8004 deployments. We can make block space cheaper for agents that are doing potentially millions of X402 payments a day, right? They're fielding those a day. They can actually have their own dedicated block space to make that happen. They don't have to worry about anybody else. And as we at Scale continue to innovate, we have a lot of privacy components coming. And again, privacy is one of those things where everyone's talking about it, but no one really has it, or at least no one has it in a way that is compliant enough with today's world, today's society. We didn't get a chance to talk about the barista test. We'll kick that down the road for maybe the new year. And then we'll have a deeper dive. Maybe we'll bring Connor on one day. But what I think is really exciting is, as we spin up these agents in Khorus and our other amazing partners like you guys that are building on Scale, bringing agents to life, bringing the next billion agents on chain, privacy is going to be relevant because I don't need the whole world knowing every single thing I do. If I did, well, honestly, it wouldn't be that big of a deal, but like, I just don't want that because that's not how my life works today. And I think most people are kind of feeling the same way. And so I'm also just very excited to see how privacy plays into this because if you've been around blockchain long enough, you know that there's a cost to everything. So if we're already at risk of gas fees driving higher because tons of agents are coming on chain, what's going to happen when we add privacy on top of that? I don't think it's going to be very good for your wallet, your checkbook. Does anybody still have a checkbook these days?
And the biggest cost is that to your sanity. Guys, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Scale School. Mehmet, thank you. It's incredible what you guys are building. I'm super excited to learn more and even participate in your kind of your AI marketplace. I'm going to be putting up some crazy things. I'm going to be the social guru on the Khorus marketplace. So look out. So yeah, anything final to close out the year?
Go to office.chorus, KHORUS.io, sign up, create an agent, click the box that says deploy it on chain with 8004 and select scale. Merry
Hell
Christmas.
yeah.
I was just about to say
Happy
something.
holidays.
What do you say,
Thank you
Pippin?
guys. Happy holidays.
Nothing further? Happy holidays, everyone. Good boy.